And now with the submission of that information, it's instantaneously available in the office. They can flip it to an invoice like that. They can also send copies of these authorized field tickets to the customer, because that's what our customers want. They want proof that these tickets were authorized before they're invoiced. There's, I think, close to $1 trillion lost or more every year due to inefficiencies in heavy industry.
Welcome to episode 13 of Crownsmen Energy, featuring Aimsio Inc. And here to walk us through their cloud systems, AI, and machine learning systems is their Vice President of Sales, Dennis Hale. Before we can continue, let's go ahead and thank our sponsors. Today we are sponsored by Savannah Equipment. Are you working on pipelines, oil and gas projects, renewable energy, or LNG and need to save some cash? Well, Savannah Equipment has industrial pumps, electrical equipment from motors to transformers, and even surplus pipe and much, much more available now. Visit them at savannahequipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. We are also sponsored by PowerZone Equipment. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems, no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with PowerZone. Visit them at powerzone.com. Well, let's get on with episode 13 of Crownsmen Energy.
Hello, welcome to Crownsmen Energy. I am your host, Jerrod Downey. Today on the show, we have Aimsio, and Dennis Hale is the Vice President of Sales. Hi, Dennis. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jerrod. How are you this morning?
Good. I have a little bit of trouble with the pronunciation. Did I say it? It's Aimsio, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. We'll accept anything, but Aimsio is the the actual way. It seems to be one of those things that are a bit of a challenge sometimes for people to get. So, typical software company name.
Well, we'll have plenty of links and tags, and so anybody watching this will be able to, as long as they can get to you. I think that's the important thing, right?
Absolutely. It's the start of the alphabet, so it's at the top of the list.
Right. How long have you been with the organization?
I've been with Aimsio for about a little over 2 years now, actually.
So I want to set up this. This is one of those interviews that it's that piece that everybody in the industry is using or not using, but certainly needs. But it's a little bit tricky because there is, just by the nature of the business, especially we'll go with the energy sector, which I know is a major part of your business. There's the administrative side, and then there's the on the ground work. And so I want to start off with sort of your role in the company is to you actually have to have Aimsio brings that together, and then what is your role within the company first, and then let's transition over to what Aimsio is doing for the customer.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Jerrod, Aimsio impacts both the field side of the business as well as the administrative side of a business, and there's a tremendous sense of overwhelm out there in companies that are predominantly in the energy sector or any kind of heavy industry. There's a lot of overwhelm when it comes to managing the administrative side as well as managing the field work where the revenue is actually being generated. So my role in the company is to help our business grow, of course, but also just by way of creating value for businesses again in heavy industry and energy, to try and simplify the flow of information, because it's so complex, and it's these multi-million-dollar projects have a bit of a magnifying glass on them these days, because they are, in many cases deemed essential in the pandemic, and that they need to improve their efficiency. They need to improve their administrative capacity. They need to improve the ability for them to generate more revenue out in the field. So Aimsio really does play a critical role in that. And my job, again, just to make sure that we can help businesses out there realize that, take advantage of some efficiencies created through software.
When you're going out there now, again, because it is through software, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it. But when you're dealing with sort of any software introduction to a company, Do you see that there's a big difference now, considering all that's gone on and with how people need to, the socially distancing and working remotely more? And are you seeing a new openness than maybe you were in December of 2019? Is there a shift, a noticeable shift for you?
Yeah, there is a noticeable shift for sure. We're at the beginning of the pandemic, back in March and April, we actually saw the highest number of inbound inquiries come into our
Mm-hmm.
company compared to ever before. Actually, it was the highest number, and that's a direct result of, again, this kind of magnifying glass being put on to digital transformation. And historically in this sector, a lot of these, again, huge projects are being run and managed by way of paper tickets, paper LEMs, spreadsheets, big administrative crews, lots of people in AR and AP and payroll. And that is, they were all very tightly knit, of course, as well, and needing to be very close to each other. And then just the idea of social distancing and the idea of having to do things more remotely, again, put this big spotlight on the fact that transformation needs to happen, and digital transformation is the way to get there. So yeah, it's a significant shift from before.
In a goal, and I want to get into an example right away, because I've been in plenty of offices where we're talking. As soon as you use words like, excuse me, digital transformation, cloud, heaven forbid we use terms like AI. There's a certain portion of the, and sometimes it's a large portion. If you're in a meeting, you just see everybody's eyes glaze over. They're like, okay, well, absolutely, I have nothing to contribute on this one, so I'm just going to wait it out. And I've seen it so many times. And you're in that position, not only as a company, but also in your role. So I want to jump into an example, but I also want to highlight a goal that you brought up, and it's to increase billable hours. And that's such a simple goal to have, but such a complicated thing to achieve. Are you noticing now too that you're seeing when you implement what Aimsio offers into a company? Are you seeing that is there actually an opportunity to decrease the amount of dependency on the administrative side and be able to actually increase the billable side? Is that a real tangible thing that can be accomplished?
It is a tangible thing, and that is ultimately the premise behind Aimsio, because all of our customers, their work is done in the field. Their revenue is dependent on the work being done in the field, right? And most of it is related to time. So they're either capturing labor time, equipment time, maybe they're capturing some material consumption or usage on site, and that is what is translated into revenue. And so it's either by way of billing directly for those items, like on a time and material basis, or tracking those things so that you can account for your progress towards a lump sum bid kind of job. Either way, that work in the field and tracking and managing those activities in the field are critical to the way a business makes money. And what's historically happened is that the administrative side or the support side has also needed to scale in almost like a 2-to-1 kind of ratio. Like every couple people they have in the field, they need to add another support person, just because there's so much complexity there. So of course, as we know, the revenue side of it in the field is again where all the money is being made, but the non-billable, the support staff, there's no direct correlation necessarily between, you're not billing for their time, right? So we're trying to increase billable time and really reduce the amount of required hours done on the support side, and that's where Aimsio fits in. We can affect both. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other, right? So a lot of tools out there may promise, the ability to help streamline things to make more money, to build more revenue, but do nothing about cost cutting or cost mitigation or anything like that. But Aimsio really does impact both of those things, and the way we do it is just simply through efficiency, right? You can add more billable people to your team without having to add more administrative people, simply due to the fact that a lot of that upfront work, that recording of that information, is getting pushed to the field level, and they're just using a mobile phone, they're using a tablet, something that they're very familiar with already. They're recording that information, and then they're pushing it back seamlessly through the cloud, you said it earlier, back to the office. So these things like invoicing, project tracking, progress updates, things like that can be done.
I want to go in and I want to circle back because I was going through your slide last night, and you did something really nice on it where you did show it from the administrative side, what they would be seeing on it for a project, and then what the field is seeing. And now I'm not very, very tech savvy. Good thing for me, I have Gowdy in here to keep things running. But I could actually follow it. I could see where everything works. So I was like, okay, this is obvious how much nicer this would be because I've been on these projects, and it can be the pen and paper is quite the system. But I wanted to go, do you have an example? And I know there's a couple examples. I think I saw one with, I think it's a rail company, correct me if I'm wrong. Can you just sort of give that practical example so anybody who is my grade or below can actually have a tangible example of what you're putting in place?
Yeah, definitely. So, one of our customers, like you said, rail operations, servicing railways and things like that across the country. And coming into, actually, I'll go back even further. Before Aimsio, a lot of their work was being done with spreadsheets. And when I say work, I mean the tracking of all of their time in the fields, their projects, their reporting off of their field work, all done with spreadsheets. And we're talking countless spreadsheets, and I'm sure a lot of people right now on the call or listening in will agree that spreadsheets have been a savior in a lot of ways, right? They have saved the day for businesses because let's be honest, they are very flexible. You can throw some formulas in, you can throw some macros in, and there's always those one or two people in a company that are the macro wizards that that are the keepers of the keys to Excel, if you will, and without them, the company would have been very it would have been even more challenging, right? So these spreadsheets have become just a way of life and an integral part of the operations for many businesses. So this particular example was no different. They had countless spreadsheets, many versions, many distributed people around the country who were, running the administrative side of things as well as the operations side of things, all using these spreadsheets, and a lot of paperwork that was being done in the field was being literally sent to or delivered to offices to try and populate these spreadsheets with more information. So you can imagine the kind of administrative overwhelm and burden that took on. So once we were incorporated into their organization, what we're able to actually do is take a lot of that burden away. And by way of actually essentially codifying the work that was being done on these Excel sheets into a system that connects the field crew with the office crew. And simply by having a mobile device with Aimsio in their hands on site, and then just a computer in the office with an internet connection. So that's all they needed to bridge the gap between the field and the office by way of Aimsio. So we were actually, in essence, able to replace a tremendous amount of that administrative burden. A lot of those Excel workbooks, a lot of those Excel macros ended up becoming redundant. And that is something that saved them in a lot of ways. They told us that, coming into the pandemic, they couldn't imagine what it would have been like if they were in that kind of old, manual, repetitive process in the middle of the pandemic, because Aimsio connected them. It allowed them to work more remotely. It allowed them to get things done way more efficiently than they ever had before. So that was it was a great thing to hear that we could help out in that way. And it was, just a real world example of how, software can be used to really bring that efficiency into the middle of a business and provide some substantial ROI.
You touched on something that I was thinking about sort of as we got this interview underway, and I was thinking anybody who is watching now that hasn't been in touch with you is obviously they have an opportunity to take advantage of it. But anybody who already took advantage of it now after everything that's gone on, they must be a step ahead. Like this customer that you're talking about, they already had your system in place. So when all this craziness happened and everything shut down, I mean, it must have been a tremendous breath of fresh air to go, okay, we're not stuck out in the open water here. It's must to get ahead of it is a huge advantage, right?
It is a huge advantage, and we do feel, of course, that it is a competitive advantage in a lot of ways. If you're in whether it's rail operations, energy services, completions, coil tubing, wireline, pipeline construction, even you name it, like these industries are all very competitive industries, and it's that incremental improvement over your competitor is often the major difference maker in securing more bids or being more profitable or making a better margin. And in today's world, sometimes the difference between solvency and insolvency, and it's just that little edge is so important. So yeah, I mean, of course, for us, we do feel that can that degree of efficiency can help our customers tremendously. Not just get through this, but ultimately thrive through this as well.
The question that anybody who, if you're sitting there presenting, I'm sure you've got it 1,000 times, that anybody's going to have is that let's go back to this rail company or a pipeline company or whoever is working, and I'm assuming something like this is probably 50 employees or above, right? Is sort of where you larger scale, right? 3 or 4 people that are working on it. So a company that 50 plus, let's say, company up to 1,000 people. If you have a company that size and they're operating on all these spreadsheets, what does it take, without getting too technical on you, but what does it take to shift over from spreadsheets? Now we're going to be on, I understand that the end result is going to be amazing. You've got me on the field with an app, and you've got you as an administrator, and I say, okay, we need this much tubing, and it's going to take this long to install it, and bang, 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 it's populated, it goes up into the cloud, over to the administrator, and it's there. It's amazing. And now they can click an invoice and get it to that part. That end result's amazing. What is that transition time or plan that has to happen to get from Excel's spreadsheets to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Jerrod. And I'm going to provide some heavy praise to the team at Aimsio here to say that it is a team effort to move a company from manual paper-based, Excel-based processes to a software solution. We have a phenomenal implementation team, and they are business analysts, and they are computer scientists and programmers, and they do a phenomenal job. So first off, I wanted to make sure that they got the props that they deserve.
Credit where credit is due.
Yeah, exactly, because it's certainly not all me. And so moving past that, the plan is always to go through a very detailed implementation process. And Aimsio actually ends up sitting, just due to the nature of our flexibility, somewhere between a off-the-shelf, out-of-the-box, ready to go, no configurations possible product, and a custom product where you hire a team of software developers and engineers to just start from the ground up. Right, and that is kind of the other end of the spectrum. Aimsio sits nicely in the middle, because on one side you got, again, a little bit rigid, out of the box, usually a bit of a lower price point. You've got custom, which is tens of, or could be millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands at least, or millions of dollars to do that and go through that process. And at the end, you do get a product, but it tends to not be as upgradable or future-proof, because it was built today and not necessarily for tomorrow. Aimsio is again right in the middle, where we can take a lot of the elements of custom software and incorporate it into our platform, so that every single one of our customers actually ends up with a unique platform, something that is theirs, because all of their workflows are very unique. But we're also, not at that high, super high, $1 million price point. And we're more flexible than the one over here that's just out of the box. So it's a nice place to be. And what we do is we take a very detailed set of requirements from the customer. We spend a couple days with them, typically doing sessions around all of their workflows, and make sure that every department within the company is heard, because this really does have the potential to impact a tremendous number
Yeah.
of people in the organization, right? So where it ends up sitting again is kind of this front end, this operational information gathering tool, where people from finance, people from project management, people from safety and HSC, people from supervisors and technicians, they all have access to this information now in kind of a centralized database, and they can all their workflows are taken into consideration as we configure it for them. The process takes typically in around about that 8 to 10 week range to get something
Yeah.
ready to go. We start with a bit of a template and we kind of build on it and make some changes from there on out.
Yeah, you touched on something that I think is so important. Again, I've had not near at your level, but I've had some experience with trying to implement these processes. And the thing that if you're 50 plus and you try to get a cookie cutter thing off the shelf, it's going to be a disaster, because they will never, especially in the industrial sector, maybe retail you might get away with it, but in the industrial sector, there's just too many variables that there's no way that somebody can build an off the shelf for a rail company and a pipeline company. There's no way. And then and I've seen these completely customized systems where it's just a disaster because there's no framework to go. So the company builds it from the ground up. Well, there's standard systems that you can also implement too. And it's just so that in between is such an important spot. And I've seen that firsthand. I wanted to get into quickly into cloud systems. But I want to touch on something quickly too. On the side of the customer as well, I saw on the field, you can put in what supplies are going to be needed, purchase orders, billable hours, that sort of thing. And then it can be an invoice can be generated at the administrative level to send back. There must be a tangible turnaround time for a customer to get that information as well. Is that a selling point as well for you, or is that not a primary focus? Just how quickly a customer can get the information of what they're going to be spending on a project.
Yeah, so there's two elements to that, and so one is the billable piece, right? So the work getting translated into an invoice, as you mentioned, and then the other piece is the tracking of that work so that you can make sure that your projects are on time and on budget, right? So there's kind of two pieces to that. The first one, the billable information, is critical, right? Because again, the idea behind Aimsio is let's give the provide stronger cash flow by way of efficiencies. Let's make sure that you're getting your invoices done quickly and effectively, and converting your field tickets, for example, over to an invoice really quickly to really impact cash flow. So let's talk about that one for a minute. A lot of our customers, before kind of coming onto Aimsio, are again overwhelmed with administrative burden, and it can take them up to a month, sometimes even more, just to get work converted to an invoice, simply because of the paperwork and the spreadsheets and all the admin time.
Yeah.
So what we're actually doing is we're again using a mobile device with Aimsio loaded onto that device in the hands of a supervisor in the field, and allowing them to record that information in real time, right? At the end of the day, for example. And now with the submission of that information, it's instantaneously available in the office. They can flip it to an invoice like that. And now your days to invoice, one of these key metrics that we're really looking at, goes from 60 days to 4 days or 3 days or 2 days. And that is a tremendous impact on cash flow. For anybody in the financial capacity listening to this as well, a lot of CFOs, for example,
yeah,
they are monitoring WIP, right? Their work in progress. They are looking at that capital that's sitting there unbilled, and they want to clear that off the books and move it to AR as soon as possible. Because as soon as it's an AR, it's as good as cash in a lot of ways, right? So let's get that invoice generated fast. Aimsio can get that done for customers in no time at all. One of our customers had a feedback to us that was tremendous to hear, is that they had over $1 million of extra cash in the bank compared to this time last year,
Yeah.
just because they were able to invoice so much faster.
Right.
And it just related to cash flow, right? Because they can get paid hopefully faster as well. I know there's a bit of a lag now in days sales outstanding when it comes to submitting invoices to companies like major producers, operators of the world. That is out of our control. But
Right. Yeah.
by way of getting it to that invoice stage faster, that cash flow really increases.
I was thinking when you were saying all this, I was thinking there's one person watching this that runs a company that's really excited, and he's going to tell his staff, "Oh, we should go and check out more." There's another person getting in trouble right now because he's saying to them, where has this been the last 2 years?
Well, we're just here to try and illuminate some possibilities. That's it. So hopefully everybody can see that there's some opportunities for improvement here for sure.
Yeah. If you're watching this, don't get in trouble for someone for not knowing it. That's why the show is here.
Absolutely.
So there's, again, we talked about going back to these meetings and people sort of cloud over, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I just want just to a basic level of understanding, because again, as recently as a year ago, I've had discussions with people talking about cloud systems and the confusion behind them. It really is beautifully marketed as cloud systems, and so what that did is it sort of made a mass confusion of people what a cloud system was, not realizing this is actually servers facilitated into these giant fields with cooling fans and all this sort of stuff that it takes to facilitate this information. Can you give us that basic understanding of what that system is, and then of course the integration with what you're offering?
Yeah, for sure. So for everybody out there, the cloud is really a fancy word for the internet. That's about it. It's just as you put it, a newly marketed kind of term on how to describe the internet and information being distributed through the internet and the ability to access that information through the internet. That is essentially what a cloud system is. So if you think about your Netflix account streaming into your living room, or even things like social media, these are all tools, softwares that are residing on the internet, and as you say, usually being served to the world from these giant server farms, these giant places of data centers where the information is being broadcast out through broadband to the planet, right, to the world. So these different tools sit on these huge server systems. Banking software as well is another great example. So it is the advantages that come along with cloud is accessibility, security. You can get the stuff anywhere in the world, you get the information anywhere in the world as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection. So there's a lot of flexibility in that. And Aimsio, when we got started, we really wanted to take advantage of some of these performance boosters that a cloud system can offer. Because what we found on the market as we were doing our kind of competitive analysis was that a lot of tools out there were really relegated to just on-premise kind of stuff, really rigid. You have to get updates all the time, and all this kind of stuff. And it was a very manual, very rigid, non-flexible process. And that we wanted to, and it was partly probably because that was just the dominant system, if you will, in the industry. And this kind of cloud technology, it's everywhere now, and it's certainly being adopted in a lot of different ways, but back then it wasn't as dominant. So that's the reason why we've gone with a cloud system. That's kind of what it is. It's you could be a CEO of a pipeline construction company on holiday in Costa Rica, sitting on the beach somewhere, if we're ever allowed to travel again, and you could see the update of your field tickets and being completed in real time, right? That's the kind of accessibility that is not just a nice to have in today's world, but it's kind of a must have. So again, hopefully that kind of answers the question and describes it in a little bit more detail.
It does. And I wanted to clarify something because you said if you have access to Wi-Fi. Again, I've been on these projects and not all of them do. And I am almost sure I saw a feature going through the slide yesterday that you do have a sync when you come back on. So someone in the field can be putting in information. Once they get Wi-Fi, they go back to the camp and get it, or however that works. Let's say it's a mining operation, you're underground, whatever it is. You have a system in place where you can input the information and then it will sync once back to the administrative side once you're back into service, right?
Yeah, and a critical differentiator from a lot of systems out there that are, again, tied to a connection. So we knew right away that our customers were doing work in remote areas, right? Northern Alberta, West Texas, everywhere in between, where they might not have LTE, 3G signals. They might not have Wi-Fi. And truth be told, that's why paper is such a dominant recording mechanism out there in the marketplace today. Because you know what? It doesn't need any technology. It can work anywhere. You whip out a pad, you write down things, it's done, right? So we get that. What we also understood is that there are a lot of value adds that come from a digital system like Aimsio. So let's replace the paper with a tablet. So let's replace it with a phone. And both of those devices can be used offline, right? You take your phone out to, anywhere you're going on holidays, you have no cell signal, you can still access your documents, right? You can still access your notes. You can still access a lot of things on your phone because those things don't require a connection. It's the exact same thing with Aimsio. So your field supervisor could be, again, Northern Alberta or somewhere in there, let's just say, and they just decide to record a ticket because it's the end of the day. They don't need that connection. They can go through the workflow. They could hit the submit button and it sits in a queue on their device until they are back at camp or back at their hotel or back in their home or back in the office, where they can simply synchronize and send that information up to the cloud. And that was a big distinction too, because there's ERP systems or financial accounting platforms out there that they're huge, right? Almost every company that we work with has some kind of a financial brain to the business, right? And it does the reporting, and it's this massive, enterprise resource planning system, or ERP. Those ERPs are great. They are a solution to a lot of challenges, but they are at their core a financial system. And some of them will extend or offer some kind of a field service or field management kind of module or add-on, an extension of that ERP. And one of the number one things that we hear from our customers that have gone down that path and then ended up coming back over to Aimsio is there was no offline capability from that with that ERP, that tool, right? And that was critical. Without that offline capacity, that module extension from ERP doesn't do much good when you're sitting somewhere in West Texas with no internet.
Yeah, exactly. I want to run through. We've kind of touched on this sort of the setup. If it was on a pipeline or if it was on a rail line. And there's another example I want to sort of close off with. But I want to just. I think it's a good time here, Dennis, to kind of go through a few highlighted services you're offering, just because someone listening, they'll hear about the invoicing and tracking and everything like that. But I want to kind of distinguish, and I want to bring up a couple slides just so people have a very clear, if they don't already, a very clear idea of what we're talking. So I'm just going to throw out a couple services that I saw that you're providing within your platform. And then if you could just outline them a little bit. Project tracking, we've talked about it a lot, but could you just spend a couple minutes just say what that entails within your system?
Yeah, absolutely. So these large multi-million-dollar projects that we've been talking about typically have phases to them. They, a beginning, middle, end phase, quite granular. Often there's, 20, 30, 40 different phases, depending on the length or term of this project. On some of the service type work, that's a little bit more, a little shorter in timeline, like a couple days. There might only be a couple different things that you're doing, but you might want to track activity that's being done to that specific code or to that specific phase. So our project tracking module is really, it allows field crews to, again, record that information against a code or against a phase to provide real-time insight back at the office level of budget versus actual, completion rates, how you're doing on each phase, and allow you as a business to identify an area that needs improvement, right? If you put a budget out there for, $10,000 for this welding phase, and all of a sudden you're tracking towards this phase being, $20,000 double, there's an area of improvement that might not have been illuminated as quickly or as easily if you didn't have a tool that was tracking that progress in real time. So for those of you out there that are using like a project management or project planning tool like a Microsoft Project, P6 Primavera, something like that, you're very familiar already with that kind of Gantt chart format of project management and project planning. This takes that Gantt chart and actually superimposes it over top of your job and provides real-time updates and tracking on those. So it's a huge value add for overall performance and efficiency gains in the field.
Yeah. That's definitely. I want to go on to the dispatch side, because, well, I like to choose a couple things that I don't know very much about, and dispatch is one of them. Can you walk through that system a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. So the idea with Aimsio was always to try and bring all of these operational processes under one umbrella instead of having customers using 3 or 4 different systems. The idea being, let's bring these key things that operational heavy companies do on a daily basis into a single system, and dispatch was one of them. So dispatching is, again, simplified for the call here, it is just the act of assigning resources to a job, right? That could be crew, could be equipment, anything that you would typically assign to a job or dispatch or schedule for that job. So we digitized that workflow, and what we actually realized when we would go into our customers' offices in the early days is that they would have these huge whiteboards and these magnets on these whiteboards, and they'd be moving around. Yeah. Sure, there's a lot of them out there still. And you're moving these magnets around onto different jobs and trying to keep track of things. So we asked ourselves, well, what if that was a digital process? What could we do to make that even better? So that's in essence what our dispatching module does, is it provides anybody that is in that role or capacity at a company the ability to assign drag and drop resources over to jobs, plan out jobs in advance where there's 2 or 3 week window of a job being performed. You want to kind of align your crew, make sure that there's no overlap, make sure that there's no errors in that dispatching process, and even communicate directly from the tool itself to the cell phones of your crew. So as soon as you dispatch somebody and send a confirmation to them, they get a text message on their phone saying, hey, Jerrod, you were just assigned to this job, respond to with the job number to confirm. And then the team back in the office, all you got to do is hit the number on your text. You don't even need to go into the tool. And the team back in the office sees that, Jerrod just accepted this job. He's going to be there. Right. So it's a great way to kind of track that and also see any kind of variances or discrepancies where, all of a sudden Jerrod did say he was going to be there, but Jerrod didn't show up on the field ticket. Well, how come? Did Jerrod, play hooky today? I'm sorry to pick on you, by the way, but did he get missed on the ticket? Is that an opportunity for revenue, billable revenue that we missed out on for whatever reason? Right. So all these things become illuminated once you're able to integrate dispatching into your operations. It's definitely one of our most popular modules.
So, and then also I'm thinking, so then your supervisor doesn't have to phone you and say, hey, where are you? This whole system this whole conversation that you have to go. I've been on both sides. I've been the supervisor that's had to give the call and also been the call. You're like, oh, just send me the text on where I'm going.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And same thing on equipment. I mean, one thing that always comes up is like equipment. Like, it's one thing for people to have calendars, right? We all have calendars. We live by them. I'm tied to mine. And we're people. That's just the way it goes. But equipment tends to not have a calendar, right? Equipment pieces like that excavator, that coil unit, that hydrovac truck, that generator, it typically doesn't have a calendar. But in Aimsio, in dispatching, everything has a calendar, and allows you to really have a visualization of when that coil unit is now available. Can it be used on another job? So maximizing equipment utilization comes up as a direct result of this. And again, a great opportunity to make more revenue, just have access to greater revenue.
I think, even all these service industries that I think of all the contractors I've had to work with over the years, and just how there's always running behind, and they're phoning, trying to figure out where a unit is that needs to get on site over here, but they're 45 minutes away, but the job takes 15 minutes longer, and all of that stuff, streamlining that system in real world use is just an amazing thing. We talked about it a little bit. There's two things I want to quickly touch on. One is the invoicing system, because we did touch on it already, so we'll just touch on it quickly here. But I just want to close off with a little discussion about AI, because again, that's the glaze over topic, but it's such an important topic. I know there's a bit of integration into Aimsio. So I just want to highlight the invoicing just one more time. Just quickly discuss that system, and then I want to jump over to that AI to wrap up the interview.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll address the invoicing thing with a bit of a real world example. It tends to make the most sense when you're trying to understand it. So we had a customer, now a customer, before they were a customer of Aimsio's. I walked into their office, and I walked into their accounts receivable office, and there was a young lady sitting at a desk, and in front of her, and I'm not kidding you, there were piles of field tickets in front of her. Piles and piles of field tickets, because they're doing daily tickets, right? Or sometimes weekly tickets on different jobs. So she had a tremendous amount, and she just had this kind of overwhelmed look on her face. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well,"
laughing, because we've all seen that look.
Right, exactly.
It's all seen that.
Right, pulling your hair out. And she said, "Well, I need to invoice these field tickets, and I got to match them up with the right price book, the right customer, make sure the rates are all good, make sure they're all stamped or approved, signed off on. And then I need to put them together. And I also need to scan them into the system so that when I send the invoice, I can also send copies of these authorized field tickets to the customer, because that's what our customers want. They want proof that these tickets were authorized before they're invoiced." So we talked about that for a while. And, I ultimately said, "Okay, well, if we can make this easier for you, would that be of value? Like, if we could make this kind of go away in a sense, would that be of value?" And she, of course, agreed. So fast forward, we're actually able to take that process and literally digitize the whole thing and turn it into a process that can take minutes instead of days or weeks. So a field ticket gets submitted from a mobile device out in the field. It's instantly available in the office. The accounts receivable person would then go through and however often they want, daily, weekly, however, they go in, they just simply select a customer in the system that has work being done for them, and 10 field tickets, let's say. They click a button to convert that over to an invoice, and the system actually brings all the line items out of that field ticket, converts it over to an invoice based on their configurations, because that process is very unique from company to company. So we make sure that that is brought into the system. But it's a quick conversion over to an invoice, and then that can be sent directly to a customer. It can be if an invoicing file can be sent over to the customer if they're using some kind of a vendor management system or e-settlement platform. It can be sent, of course, over to their accounting system as well. But that whole process goes from days, weeks to a matter of minutes. So again, one of the larger value adds for sure when it comes to our platform.
Yeah, the other thing that I'm thinking of is, if as a customer, if I know somebody, there's actually two things that's come to my mind here. One, obviously, people also buy and sell companies, and if I walked into a company, I would either have to now, from this interview, I would have to now know that a company is capable of putting a system like this in place, and would certainly be more interested if they have this system in place. If they showed me, yeah, we've got 700 people on board, and here's our 50,000 Excel spreadsheets to keep track of everything, I'd be going, oh, okay, all right. How much slippage do we have here? But yeah, I want to. The AI part. Oh, by the way, and that ties into insights. And just for the sake of time, I think we can tell the audience, that Aimsio brings all of this into a tracking system, which you can see all the insights and all the tracking of it. It's just absolutely amazing. And you've got a fair amount of information on your website, and of course, contact you directly to find out more about that system as well. Is that the insight system? Is that integrated in? Does it automatically, as you're putting everything else in place, do the insights automatically formulate?
Yeah, great question. Our insights module is an analytics engine. It's embedded in Aimsio, and it actually is a way to visualize the information that's being collected. Again, to not get too fluffy. I mean, there's a lot of information that operationally centric, field centric companies are generating on a daily basis. A ton of information, and right now that information is being relegated to a filing cabinet somewhere in the office and never to be looked at again, and it loses all of its value. But there is a tremendous amount of value and a tremendous amount of insight in that data. So that is information, right? And pen to paper, a cell in a spreadsheet, it's all data. It's all information that has the ability to be converted into a real asset class for any company out there. Because information, as we all know, is being hailed as the new currency in a lot of ways, right? It's data as a new currency. We've heard it time and time again, but believe it or not, there's a lot of truth to that. And it might be something as simple as that example I used earlier about, that welding phase of your job being a little bit over budget, and managing that and making a little tweak, a little check, a little change to make sure that doesn't happen, and just do that at scale. All of a sudden your business is much more, it's much more optimized, right? So insights is just a way of looking at the data that you're already generating: safety data, project data, purchase order data, estimation data, field ticket data, invoice data, customer data, revenue data. All these things now have a home within the system to allow you to look at that as an asset class, and from a management perspective, make changes, educated changes, decisions based on data that will ultimately improve the equity of your business and ultimately improve the value of your company, and get it ready to go for the next downturn, for example, if that comes as well.
Just to wrap up, Dennis, and again, anybody who's been with us for almost the hour that we've discussed your company, I think they can do the AI talk. So let's finish with a little bit of AI. Again, for me, it's something that's a little beyond my understanding. I'm honestly I half glaze over. I kind of get it, and I'm kind of confused halfway through a conversation. Can you discuss a little bit about sort of where it can or will integrate into what Aimsio is doing, and just that basic understanding of it? Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, Aimsio is just getting started. We really see this as a multi-billion-dollar problem out there in heavy industry. There's, I think, close to $1 trillion lost or more every year due to inefficiencies in heavy industry, and that's a major problem to tackle, and that's the problem that we're trying to address in the market today. And one of the ways that we can do that first is helping customers collect the data. And then once it's collected, what are you going to do with it, right? And we talked a little bit about insights just now and how you can visualize that information. And the next step in that evolution is really in either the automation of what goes on with that information or that data, or the predictability of the result from that information. So in essence, that's kind of what AI is and does. And I'm not the expert either. We actually have a team of founders that are incredibly intelligent with this stuff, PhDs in machine learning, masters in computer science. Like there's some heavy hitters at the top of the company when it comes to this stuff. So they will be sure to point out if I'm making any kind of incorrect statements. So just to keep it as high level as possible, it really is about that prediction element and that automation element. And a computer system, a computer algorithm, a computer program, um, making those recommendations based on the information that it's being fed, and potentially making quick adjustments or automations based on that information that's being fed. So that's really all that AI is, and Aimsio is looking at incorporating more of these elements into our platform in the near future. Again, allowing a business to maybe make more accurate estimates based on a year's worth of estimates that have gone into the system, and this tool, this artificial intelligence tool within it, saying, okay, maybe if you make this tweak or do this or do change that, your estimate will have a 5% greater chance of being selected by your vendor. Like things like that is the vision of artificial intelligence in a system like Aimsio, and it kind of that's it's not so scary if you think about it like that. I know it's a scary term, especially out in the media. There's lots of sensationalization of artificial intelligence and AI out there, and I think as long as your usage of AI or machine learning is around a noble purpose, like something like running an operational centric business, then
Yeah.
then it's good. It's a tremendously valuable thing. If you're trying to position it to take over the world, then maybe not. But it's really something that can deliver the goods when it comes to ROI.
Yeah, I think that can be said for pretty much anything that we use in the modern day. I walking through this stuff, I hope people go and check out what your company is doing, because the thing that stands out to me through this discussion is, and especially when you couple it with the AI, is these systems you're putting in place. I mean, as one company does it and another company doesn't. I mean, that's going to be bottom line, which is your competitiveness, and I know this. If someone's listening to this, it's almost like I'm doing a sales pitch for your company, and that's actually not what I'm doing. What I'm I guess in a way, but these systems that you put in place, if you wait 3 years from now, and as AI gets more integrated into, let's say, your system, the company that then has to transition is going to be that much tougher. And that's sort of that always that balance that you need to find when you're running a company is, if you get into something at the very beginning, sometimes it causes more problems because maybe they haven't worked out the bugs yet. But if you get into something when it's the right time, but it's not too late, you still get that competitive advantage. Especially, I mean, it's so competitive right now, and it's only going to get more competitive. And so you really are filling in this gap of giving someone a platform to be able to excel where their company is at, without having to really restructure anything or just, they're still within their operations. It's just integrating within their system. Is that a fair assessment coming out of this interview?
It is a fair assessment, and there's a lot of ways to digitize these things, and we really are trying to communicate the message out there that it doesn't need to be many things, like many pieces put together. It can be a single system. It can be something that is operationally focused, that acts as that data capture, that information capture center for your operational business, and then it feeds the information out to finance, and that's the piece that we're really trying to convey, is the centralization, connecting the disconnectedness, connecting workers literally everywhere, that if they're remote, if they're not, connecting them together with the office in a seamless kind of way. And yeah, that's a sign of an efficient business. And if you're the target of an acquisition, or if you're looking to buy and you're looking to bring more businesses into you, into your company, those are kind of the markers that you're probably going to be looking for out there when you're going through
Sure.
these exercises, right? Is this company that we're either bringing on or that's bringing us on? I mean, is there a true sense of optimization there to that business? Have they connected their workforce with the office, and how seamless and integrated is that solution? So yeah, certainly an advantage in many ways.
Well, like you said, it takes 8 to 10 weeks. So if you come in, let's say you're involved in an acquisition, you come in and this company has a system like you offer in place. Well, right away, if I'm doing the acquisition, I know, oh, okay, well, we've got 10 weeks of what we're going to have to do when we take hold of this company is now eliminated. Plus, we've got to learn it. I mean, it's going to be quicker for the company that's operating it now, as opposed to a new company coming in and trying to learn the whole company, plus integrate a new system. So there's just so much value in it. Dennis, thanks for coming on the show. This is, I mean, obviously with what's going on with, I mean, people can't travel or they're very limited. Companies are only doing essential travel. So I don't know if we could have picked a better time to have on your show. Hopefully there's not a better time because let's hope it goes as far as this. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for coming on the show, Dennis. We're going to put all your information. I hope people reach out. I know there's a couple people that that friends with and work with that I'm going to send over directly this episode, and hopefully they reach out to you, because what you're doing is so important, and it's right on the money for timing as well. So, all the best to your company. Thanks for joining us, and I do hope you come back, because I know there's a lot more that Aimsio is going to accomplish in the next couple of years.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jerrod. It's been a pleasure, and thanks to Crownsmen, and happy to do a round 2 anytime in the future.
I look forward to it.
All right.
Thank you everybody for watching. We're not talking nuts and bolts in this interview. But it's, I mean, especially if you run a company, I mean, you know how important this conversation was to have. So thank you, Dennis, for coming on the show. Please keep watching, everybody. Suggest as the next guest. You can see that the diversity of guests that we've had on Crownsmen Energy. There's so much to talk about that we don't even think about when we're looking for guests. So please suggest us. Please subscribe. Share it out. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Crownsmen Energy.
Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Also, head on over to crownsmen.com/donation to help support the production of this show. There are the 2 options, the $5 monthly subscription option and the support heavy industry one-time donation option. Again, that is crownsmen.com/donations. Thank you so much for watching, and also thank you to all of our sponsors, and we will see you on the next episode.